Well, folks, this is truly one of the most disturbing stories that I've heard in a while, and the sad part is I catch myself saying that a lot these days. But down in Texas, there was an attorney by the name of Mason Herring, and he was just sentenced to 6 months in jail for trying to induce an abortion on his own wife. He was mixing these pills into his wife's drinks. Back in March of 2022, on 7 different occasions, he mixed these pills into his wife's drinks. These pills was later identified as a pill called Cyrex, which is sold down in Mexico. He got his hands on these drugs, and he tried to force this on his wife on 7 different occasions, forced her to drink it in an attempt for her to miscarriage so that he wouldn't have to have another child. And what ended up happening was this child was born 10 weeks immature and spent 117 days out of the first 9 months of its life in the hospital. Now, had his wife, Catherine, needed access to an abortion in the state of Texas, she couldn't have got it. We saw Kate Cox have to flee the state of Texas to get help, and that's happening to women all across this country. Meanwhile, this man tries to murder his child. If that's the argument they're going to make, that abortion is murder, then he tried to murder his own child, and you're going to hear nothing but crickets from the pro-life crowd. You're going to hear nothing but crickets from the All Lives Matter crowd. Somebody please tell me if anyone in the pro-life crowd stands up and shouts down Mason Herring. Let's see if anyone in the All Lives Matter crowd will speak out against Mason Herring. Let's see if one minister will stand up in the pulpit and shout him down. Let's see if one conservative politician somewhere will stand up and shout him down. They won't. But I guarantee you, if it was his wife in need of an abortion, if she truly needed it, they would be shouting her down from every pulpit in this country. Because what they have done is declared war on women. That's what this is all about. A man can still decide whether or not he wants to have a child. He can go get a vasectomy anytime he wants to. He can buy condoms anywhere he wants to. And we're seeing women's lives made so much harder, and we're seeing pain, and we're seeing suffering, and we're seeing women be forced to carry their rapist baby to term. We're watching women be forced to do something that horrific. And this guy just gets a slap on the wrist and gets to walk away. And it's one of those stories, we're going to talk about it today. You guys will watch this video. You'll get upset about it. I'll be upset about it. And then everyone will stop talking about it. And then it'll happen again, and it'll happen again. And for every story like this that makes the news, and I chime in here to say, boy, I just heard a disturbing story. These disturbing stories are happening all across this country. And I've always said that the only way that men can really understand anything, especially conservative men, is it has to happen to them. It has to affect them. I have known so many people in my lifetime that I heard make racist jokes and say racist things until one day their daughter or their son began dating a person of color, and then suddenly, well, now I don't say nothing bad about them no more. They're all right. I can't count the times that I've heard people say homophobic and transphobic things till their child came out of the closet, and then, well, better watch your mouth. What you say about gay people around me. Watch what you say about trans people. And they'll sit back and they'll shout pro-life and they'll shout all lives matter. And one day they're going to be standing at the bedside of their daughter or their sister or a loved one. They're going to be standing there, and that person is going to be in need of serious medical attention, and they aren't going to be able to get it. And these stories just keep stacking up. You know, it really drives me crazy that they call themselves the pro-life crowd, because there's nothing pro-life about them. They just want that as a catchphrase. They want to be able to whittle that down and stick it on a bumper sticker. They want to be able to stick it on a shirt. They want to be able to all get together and have a march about it somewhere. Let's be pro-life. But they're the very people that will walk into schools and they will cut children's lunches right out of the schools. They're the very people that will not do anything to stop the gun violence that's happening in the schools. They won't do nothing. Can't fix it. Can't do nothing about that. We're pro-life, though. And they'll sit and they'll shout all lives matter when we all know they don't believe that for a second. They're the very people that will say, well, so what if Kyle Rittenhouse killed somebody? I mean, hell, one of them was a pervert, so they got what they deserved. And you won't hear not one person stand up for Catherine Herring. You won't hear one person shout down Mason Herring. They'll just sit there and, yep, crickets. And that's what's so frustrating about this. It's so frustrating that we live in a world where this is possible. I really didn't think back when I was a younger man and abortion would come up in every election. I was guilty of being naive, and I was guilty of thinking that this was just a wedge issue that conservative Republicans love to use to get people to vote, because it is an issue that will tug at people's heartstrings, and they can sit and tug at the Christians' heartstrings with this, and they can sit and paint us as the worst people in the world. It's just a way to make a Democrat look bad. And I always said, no, they would never do away with that because of all the problems it would cause. I want to apologize to every woman watching this video for ever being that stupid and ever being that naive. And that's why I take other threats they make so seriously. When people say, oh man, Trump was just joking about being a dictator, he didn't mean it. Well, I used to think that this was just a wedge issue, but it's not. They made it a reality. And that reality is a cruel reality that women are living in today. And then we have an election coming up, and there's people out there that thinks bringing Donald Trump back for round 2 would be a good idea. You know, after Mike Tyson bit off Holifield's ear, there really wasn't no point in the fight continuing. It was pretty much over at that point. And Donald Trump did way worse than bite off someone's ear. His presidency damaged more women's lives than any president in history. And he's out there bragging about it. He's bragging about overturning Roe versus Wade. He's absolutely elated that he did it. And I have a feeling that when it comes November, women in this country are going to be paying attention to these kind of stories all year long. And they may have a hardcore Republican husband over here just mouthing off constantly, calling himself an alpha male and sticking his chest out. But they're going to go to those polls and they're going to say, you know, I read stories like this one about Mason Herring all year long. I read stories about Kate Cox having to flee all year long. I'm going to ignore my brain dead husband. I'm going to go to the poll and I'm going to vote for life, because we allowed the Supreme Court to get stacked so far in Trump's favor and the Republicans' favor that now it's going to be one of those things that we may never, I hate to be a pessimist, but this isn't something you can just undo and fix overnight. It's going to take a long time to fix it, and there's going to be a lot of people affected by this. So try to keep these stories in the front of your mind. Try to store these there. I know they're disturbing, but you need to be disturbed. I'm not trying to spread some hyperbole here. I'm just saying, when you go to the polls, you need to have these stories on your mind. Don't let these slip out of your mind. Keep them there. When it comes election time, think back on stories like this, because trust me, this won't be the last time that old Brando chimes on here to go, well, folks, I got another disturbing story.